Hey guys, thanks for taking the time today to watch this video. My name is Aiden Hollis. I grew up here in Colorado Springs. I've been fortunate enough to be able to travel a lot throughout the states and go to Africa once. But yeah, always been here in Colorado. So here's just a little about myself. I am Christian, non-denominational. I'm kind of attending two churches right now, New Life Church and Calvary Worship Center, which is down off of, it's by Fillmore. But yeah, I grew up in the church. I had my mother who was always pushing for my brothers and I to be in the church, to be looking for opportunities to serve, to understand what it is to be a Christian and how we are to reflect who Christ is to others. And always thought a big part of that was service. I've lived much of my life kind of following the verse in First Corinthians 9:27, which is, "I beat my body and make it my slave. Thus, when I preach the gospel to others, I myself may not be disqualified from the prize." I had that verse taught to me when I was in middle school. I went through a program at New Life Church called Man Time. I think you may have heard of it. I know a lot of people within the community have had the opportunity to go through Man Time. But Man Time was one of those foundational, I guess you could call it camps, that really taught me what it is to be a man of God and to serve others so they too can know Christ. So yeah, I grew up in the church throughout middle school and high school. I almost kind of, knew I was a Christian, but wasn't quite sure if I had that relationship with Christ. It wasn't until about 6 years ago now when I graduated high school. I thought I had my plan in mind for what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into forestry. I wanted to be like a forest ranger, and God completely flipped that. He actually called me into missions. And at the time, I had a lot of friends who had been a part of YWAM, and I started getting this like weird feeling being drawn towards YWAM. And I was like, "What the heck? What is this?" And I was very scared of the commitment that YWAM asked for, because it's quite a bit of time. You're overseas, and oftentimes in pretty extreme locations. And so for months in prayer, I was arguing with God, like, "Man, I don't want to do this. It's like totally changes my plans." And I was very stubborn about that. And eventually I just gave in. I was like, "All right, if you want me to do this, then do this. But I don't want it to be a vacation. I want it to be intentional. I am asking for difficulty on this." And boy, did he give me that. I got the opportunity to go out and did YWAM out in Arua, Uganda. It's in the northwestern corner of Uganda. And during my time there, also got to go into South Sudan and Congo and Rwanda. And it was a crazy experience, to say the least. God tested my faith. He tested me spiritually, mentally, and physically. But he used all the many extreme challenges that we faced out there to shape me and to break me down, to surrender to him and to have complete reliance in him. And throughout my time there, I began to find my calling into evangelism and missions. And I had a lot of really great pastors and leaders also speak that upon me, that they believed that this is what the Lord was calling me into. And so upon returning back from YWAM 7 months later, I began asking God, "Okay, if this is what you want me to do, please, like, open the doors for me." It was kind of a hard process being in ministry like every day while you're out there, then coming back kind of to the real world and like, "Okay, now what?" And I enrolled at Mana University, and I'm in their I've been doing their intercultural ministry degree in my last year of that. It's missions focused, which has been pretty amazing. But right when I got back from Uganda, God began to open those doors for me. I stepped into leadership at Calvary Worship Center with the young adults, helping lead groups, speaking. It was a really great time. And then the doors continued to open for me. I got to step into a staff role at New Life Church. I was part of the family ministry department there for a while. My direct job was over the fourth grade. I was the fourth grade teacher on Sundays, so I oversaw, I wanted to like to say about 150 kids total. But we all worked together as a team, all of the youth. So that meant elementary and then junior high and then high school. So all of our curriculum that we did kind of flowed together. So each Sunday there were similar to each other. I guess that's how you could say it. I don't know if that makes sense, but during my time at New Life too, I also got to help lead a special fourth grade leadership course for those who wanted to be in leadership within the elementary. I was a part of the worship team for a little bit with high school and got to also serve just leading small groups with high schoolers. That was a really great time. While doing that, simultaneously, I've been a behavioral technician. So I work with kids that have autism or have suffered severe traumatic experiences that has affected them and how they cope and just how they function in the community. And I've worked with kids as little as 3 years old up to 20-year-olds. Right now, I work with 5 and 6-year-olds. My previous company that I was with, I was working primarily with teenagers. And so that's been a great experience too, being able to understand that, all the different demographics and how many things play into people's lives, their environment. Um, you know, every kid responds differently to things in their life depending on what kind of background they've come from, what kind of, different sensory processing issues they have. Everything plays into how a teenager or a kid acts or is, how they portray themselves. And so I have had a really great time being able to incorporate a lot of what I've learned in this applied behavior analysis field into a ministry role, being able to connect with kids at a deeper and greater level, if that makes sense. And then I would say right about 2 years, I don't know, time's kind of been going quick, but when the pandemic started, like a lot of ministries in town, New Life had to, I guess they put us on a bunch of us on furlough. It's such a large church. In the States, we're really locking down on big places where a lot of people gather. And so for a long time, a bunch of us were just kind of on a paid furlough. And we had to adapt to doing our ministry by creating a children's ministry website to stream services where we would film ourselves each week and then send those in to one pastor and then put them all together. And it was cool to see the church adapt because, at the end of the day, the church can't be stopped. No matter the pandemic, anything, God can't be stopped. His kingdom will always continue. But that kind of went on, and there was no date in sight for when we would be pulled back into the church. We'd be like, the church would say, okay, I think we're able to reopen, have staff come back in August 6th. Well, we'd pass August 6th and they'd say, okay, well, we're going to have to wait till September. And then it kind of kept going on. During that time, I had a bunch of clients continue to come in at the ABA clinic that I was working with. Because when the pandemic started, counseling services, physical therapy, occupational therapy, ABA therapy, all those services continued because they were deemed essential. And so there was almost an increase because of all the change. Kids and teenagers that have autism or different disorders have a really hard time with changes and just routine changes in general. So when the pandemic started, there was a ton of families trying to get their kids, and wait lists for different types of therapies increased. And our state alone has a massive need for these therapies. It's pretty interesting to see. So I decided after a lot of prayer to kind of leave New Life and allocate all my time into the therapy realm. And then ever since then, I've been feeling this passion to be back into ministry because I can't legally, I'm not allowed to talk as freely as I would about my faith, because it is a rather secular field. In every center I've worked at, they kind of want people who of faith backgrounds to keep it, to a minimum. And I've always struggled with that. If a kid wants to talk to me about Christ, I've always been like, okay, I'll run with this. And if I get in trouble, well, I'm going to, trust in God. But it's always been that kind of, I'm feeling torn, I'm feeling like I've needed to be back into ministry. And that's where God's calling me back into. So, sorry, that was very long. But to answer your questions, what ministry experience do you have, and how do you think it will help you with this job? Well, obviously, I've explained a lot of that ministry experience there. Also, while I was in YWAM, we had to choose kind of an area we wanted to work in while we were on outreach, and I really was pushing for children's ministry. And so when we got to do outreaches in different villages and even in different countries, I was able to step into that and help lead and create fun programs to do with the kids in each village, each community that we were able to be in. So, anyways, how do I think this will help with the job? I work with kids. I worked with teenagers. I love working with kids, honestly, and being able to talk to them about Christ is even better than just working with them. I feel like my experience, all the experience that I've had for so long, definitely will help, because I can connect with kids at a level that I feel like maybe some might struggle at. I'm not trying to boast in saying that, but I feel like I have a good understanding of how the youth are wired these days, especially in the kind of wild times that we are living in. And then why do I want to work for Young Life? Well, I've always admired Young Life as an organization. I've always considered Young Life to be a ministry of presence, not so much pushing like, this is Christ and you have to believe in him, like some youth groups, maybe have done in the past. That I know when I was a high schooler, I definitely heard of different youth groups that, were really trying to cram down Christ down their, the youth's throats. But at the end of the day, the decision comes down to the individual. And what I like about Young Life is they were always there. They're ministry of presence. They're in the community, and they're inviting to everybody, no matter like what background you come from, cultural, economic, what school you come from. They want all kids to come and hang out, have a fun time, and also know, hey, this is Christ. This is the one we serve. This is the one who loves you. And so that's something I've always admired about Young Life, and it honestly is really cool and something I have wanted to be a part of. This 2 weeks ago, I just completed a chaplainship program through the International Fellowship of Chaplains. I'm actually completing my license through them right now. But one thing that's always stood out to me, and what they really emphasized, is being there in the community for kids, for individuals who do not know Christ, and being there to walk alongside them, to steward them, to kind of go on that journey with them to know who Christ is. And I feel like that's something that Young Life does well. I really like the mission statement, some of the mission statements that Young Life has. One in particular, they desire every student to have the opportunity to hear the gospel before they graduate. I think that's great, and I think that's so valuable. I think that all high schoolers, too, they need to have that foundation before they go out into the world, and that bubble that they've been living in is popped, and they experience all these new things. That way they have that foundation, that moral standard, that belief system, that relationship with Christ to go back to and say, oh, this worldly thing is not right, especially in the times that we live in today. Like, the world is getting crazy. It's kind of wild, when I graduated high school 6 years ago, if you were to tell me that all this stuff was going to be happening now, I would have been like, what? One thing that I think that Young Life really does well too is they're very patient. I only went to Young Life a couple times when I was a kid. I was very plugged into different ministries, but the few times I was able to go to Young Life, I felt like there was this, like, we'll walk alongside you, and if you don't like Christ now, then cool. We'll still be there. We'll still be hanging out with you. We'll still be friendly with you. And then if you want to talk about Christ later, guess what? We're still here. And so I feel like Young Life really focuses on just being patient with where one is at. So yeah, that would be why I would say I want to work for Young Life. It's this ministry of presence. So anything else that I would like to add? I don't know. This is a very long video already. I'm sure I'll think of some other things, but if you guys ever want to reach out to me or know a little bit more about my testimony or anything like that, then feel free to email me. Reach out to me. Anyway, thanks for the time. Thanks for watching this video. Have a good one.